We are now going to have a look at a long splice. This is particularly useful when you wish to add to a line of the same diameter and preserve as nearly as possible the original diameter of the line so that it will freely pass through blocks or bits. James Craig had a 4 brace added to at one time, and this went for many years before that brace was finally replaced with a new one. It could also be used to go around a sail to close up the bolt rope, and the technique that you'll see here could also be used to replace a chafed strand in the rope with a similar diameter strand rather than replace the whole line. With these long splices, they're made over a considerable length to spread the load. In other words, this 12mm line, if you were going to do a long splice in that, the length of the splice would probably be at least a fathom. Now, the following are the steps that we'll go through to carry out this splice. It will be scaled down a little bit for convenience. However, just remember the principles and look at the diagrams following these demonstration videos. Is to mark out, overlap your lines and mark a center, and then two ends where you wish to go. Now you unlay both short ends carefully. Take it back to the middle mark. Now you do the same with the other short end. Now with both ends unlaid, as with the short splice, we have to marry them together. So put there. Keeping all the lines in the right place. There, one goes there, and one goes there. Now, the next thing to do is to actually tie an overhand knot between these two. Now, as you do this knot, just unlay, flatten the strands out there, and pull it through, and same with the other strands. This will help the two lines bed together. pull them up so that they're together like so. Right, we've completed or repaired most of our first crossover. It's now a case of taking out this strand, and putting this strand in its place. It pays to give them a twist to keep the lay tight as you do this. As I mentioned before, you've got to preserve the strength of the rope. All three final strands should have the same tension. Oops. When you look at these strands, you can probably see a patternation of when they were made, the indent in the fibres, which will give you a good indication of whether you're laying them up correctly. So you can sort of slightly see it there. Give it a twist so it sits down. Give it a twist. Oops, twist him in. And this leaves enough on the end to do your tapers. There's plenty for this one. And at this stage you could also do a knot similar to what you did in the beginning, in the middle. Just unravel that a bit so that it flattens the strands. And pull it up. Yes. Then you go to the other end of the rope and you take this strand and use it to replace that one. Now you have completed your tapering tucks. By the way, it was a bit, obviously with the big long ends, you could reduce those in length to make them easy to handle. Now, so you go along your splice, making sure, if you can still see it, give the intersection a roll, go on to the next one. these, your black marks should be all pretty well spot on. Final one. Now you can give it all a haircut. There was one step I just nearly forgot. It's actually, before you do this, you should take your line and attach it to a strong point and give it a good stretch over the whole length of the line, and then go back and inspect these, that they haven't shifted. They should do, but you never know. That's another reason why, if you're using new line, it should be all pre-stretched. There we go. Final stretch and roll, and should be ready to put back into the rig. As I say, one of these was done on a starboard fore brace, and by the time it had been worked a few times and stretched and pulled, it was very hard to spot where the joins were in that line. Okay, the long splice. We are now going to have a look at the construction of splicing, which is not dissimilar with a long splice, that will result in the formation of grommets and strops. A large one could be made, a circular one for putting in its reinforcement in the bottom of a ditty bag or the top of a ditty bag. On the other end of the scale there's the small type of grommet like this, which is subsequently used in the formation of eyelets on, in this case, a bag, or in the sails, or on the sails on the ship. Now, by far the most useful one is this one here, making it a strop, which is actually one piece of section of a rope that's made into a continuous loop and finished off much the same as you do with a long splice. And this is what we'll be looking at now. For our practical exercise, we'll make a strop the same dimensions as this synthetic one. We're just going to use natural fibre in this case, so you need 3 lengths 1, 2, 3, and same size. You'll notice there is an overlap here to allow for our finishing. So if you take these strands and make sure you mark, if you want them all to be the same size, make sure you clearly mark the crossover over section on all the way around each strand, so that they're all marked like so. Right, and then the next section is we'll just make one to start with, is to take one of these strands and carefully unwind it all the way. Keep the other two together just to preserve them for later on. Now that you have separated one strand from the other three, this is where you'll notice the importance of having your marks, so you know where to line them up. The same on your remaining 2-strand line, which you can then pop aside for later. Now we come to these fellows. It's a case of now of relaying these strands back up again. Now if you just select 2 of them, you can start from up here, might be an idea, and then it's a case of working out which way they go. Round and relay. You probably have to give them a bit of a twist to make them set into one another. Can be a little bit of a fiddly job when the line wants to curl up on you all the time. Round and round. Right, so we just keep going until we've gone right round, and then we'll attack the other side. Now that you have relayed the first pair, all your lines should come out pretty well close to spot on. If they're too far adrift, it would pay to undo it, because if you put too much twist, it can short the line, or not enough, it will be too long. So now it's a case of taking the remaining strand and wind it in the other direction. Again, giving it a little twist to seat it down into the lay. So just give it a little roll in your thumb, with your thumb and your finger rather, and lay it down between those two. So your line is starting to reform here. Right, you've relayed the 3rd line round, and they should come out here facing its opposite number, and all your black marks are in the same area. The next thing to as you did with the long splice, is just to unwind these a bit, so as to flatten them when you pull them into the center there. You put the splice around your knee and pull on it a bit. See, now that knot is lumpy, so if we go the other way, like so, it sits down into the lay. A much better look, don't you think? So if it's lumpy, undo it and go the other way. From here we can go into our normal thinning arrangement. That's it. So we've got in each of these strands, it's got 4, so you could probably just do two and then 1 in both directions, the same as you did for joining up the long splice. Now you've completed your tapering tucks. Again, our old friend will give it a bit of a roll and pull each one of these put it around something and give it a good pull and a roll. The tendency of the line to want to twist like this is due to accidentally, if you don't do your twisting evenly, you can end up with a bit of residual twist. So cut these off. And there you have your strop, which all things being equal be the same as the one you started with. And the beauty of this exercise is that you've got 2 strands left over, so you could make another couple for practice. We've already seen this synthetic strop, but as we go along we're going to make some of these natural fibre strops. But before we do so, one of the things to remember is although these 2 lines are almost the same diameter, the synthetic is far stronger. So if you're going to subject what we're going to show you, this Prusik knot, to loads, you're better off having strops like this. However, a Prusik knot is like so, and you go around once or twice, probably 3 times, and then up through the loop. The beauty of the Prusik knot is that it can take sideways load without slipping, to the left or to the right, then to the left, right and to the left, and it can also be relocated by loosening and sliding up and down. If it's on a line, you could put a handy billy on here with a hook or shackle, or tie another line on here with, say, a sheep bend, to exert the load. So we'll just go through the knot again. A diagram will follow this segment so you can have a look. So it pops under there, those two legs apart. Through there and through here. Oops. Here, and then taking it over and back through there. To settle it down. Like so. So this is well worth learning, this one, and having a supply of strops on board the ship is not a bad idea.